Welcome back to another episode of The Hip. My name is Amy Cork, the UK manager and EDI champion of Anderson James. This is the podcast where every single week we bring you a leader from across the sector to discuss the biggest challenges in HR and EDI today. Welcome, Sarah, to the podcast. If you could, just for the purpose of the listeners, give us a little introduction to yourself.
Of course, yes. So my name's Sarah Hutchinson. Recently taken on the role of Director of People and Culture at Yorkshire Housing. So a very exciting time.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Very exciting time for me personally. So I've been with Yorkshire Housing just over 4 years now. It's absolutely flown by, to be honest. Doesn't seem 2 minutes, but I joined Yorkshire Housing after 10 years in various roles within HR, within financial services. So a bit of a change, but actually the organisation that I've joined is very similar to the previous organisation I worked for in terms of sort of values and culture. And so that's what sort of really attracted me to start with to the organisation.
Amazing, thank you. And just on that note, it'd be good just to kind of open up a little bit more of how you got into the sector within social housing.
Yeah, absolutely. So it wasn't actually a planned move. I wasn't actually looking to join social housing. And when I initially heard about it was actually a senior business partner role that I applied for to begin with. And as soon as I met a lot of my colleagues that I'm working with now, I just sort of fell in love with social housing and its purpose. It has really got that core purpose of making sure that we can provide homes for people. It's such an important element of your life, isn't it? Providing a roof over your head, and actually to be a part of that is something that I really enjoy.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, so obviously when we first spoke, I know you and I caught up a lot around sort of the EDI strategy and the focus moving forwards for Yorkshire Housing. Could you kind of elaborate a little bit on that for us and bring that to life today?
Yeah, we've come on quite a journey actually over the last few years. So back in sort of 2020, 2021, we started talking about EDI and what we needed to do and what we wanted to do as an organisation. We kicked off by doing a survey for colleagues to really sort of understand where we were at, really get a benchmark of how far we needed to go and what was really important to colleagues. So we did the survey and started to draft a strategy around what our vision was around ED&I. And then sort of it's kind of gained momentum from there, really. So we've done all sorts, like sort of really getting the basics in place to start with. So looking at leadership training, and that went right up to our board level as well around ED&I, just really making sure we've got that buy-in from leaders, because that's really important to us in making sure that we're embedding the changes that we want to make. We've done things like we did an audit with HDN and they gave us some really valuable feedback around things that we could do. And that's been massively helpful in sort of deciding what we tackle first and what we do. We've set up mentoring programs. We did things like introduce a call it out policy. Which, I know policy isn't going to change the culture and it's on its own, but it's a start. It's about getting those basics right. We set up some colleague networks as well. So we've got several different networks from things like LGBTQ plus networks. We've got a working parents and guardians network, which we call Raising the Future Together. We've got the Embrace network, which is very much around including our diverse colleagues from different ethnic backgrounds, and then a neurodiversity one as well, which we use very much these groups in sort of testing some of the things we're doing. So we might go to certain groups and say, actually, do you know what do you think about this or what do you think about that? And that feedback is really, really valuable. I guess some of the stuff we've done as well is, so obviously we have to post our gender pay gap information, but we also voluntary for the last few years have been posting our ethnicity pay gap as well, because we think it's really important that we highlight that, and we've got an action plan to try and reduce that.
Yeah, fantastic. And out of all of that sort of stuff that you just mentioned there, what would one key success be for you that kind of stands out?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I think our networks have really taken hold. And I think that's because they are absolutely run and owned by colleagues and people that are really interested or have a certain affiliation maybe to some of the diversity in those groups. And I think when people are passionate about things and when people really have an interest or an affiliation to a
Yeah, of
certain
course.
diverse group, then it really sort of takes off. And the passion that you see coming out of those groups is absolutely fantastic.
And I imagine that they've just kind of made it their own, essentially, if it is all colleague run and it's not kind of directed by anybody else, it's just left to the group.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we do have some sponsorship at leadership level for some of those groups,
Yeah.
which is great to see as well, because I do think that is a helping hand and sort of being that sort of loud voice and sort of flying the flag for different people. But yeah, absolutely. That it's the colleagues that are at the centre of those groups, and they're really, all credit to them for driving it forward.
Yeah, fantastic. And just sticking with the kind of the EDI and wellbeing theme there, I know when we first caught up, you mentioned that you were looking to implement a wellbeing passport. If you could, I know that that's kind of like a general term. Could you kind of go into a bit more detail about what that is, where the idea stemmed from, and how that's going?
Yeah, so we're about to start the pilot actually in one area in particular. And
That's
the idea
exciting.
came, yeah, it is. It is. I'm really excited to get it off the ground. Where the idea for this came from was from within the team, really. And this was about us getting feedback or noticing that colleagues very often may change manager regularly or may move into different roles. And there's an element of having to repeat maybe some things to new managers as they go into a different team or purely, conversations not being had around how we can really help colleagues be their best selves at work. And that might be anything from actually, do you know what, I've got some caring responsibilities for elderly or sick family members. It might be, I'm a single parent. It might be that actually, do you know what, I'm neurodiverse and actually I really prefer feedback in this way or that way.
Yeah.
It's really about an understanding and painting that picture for a colleague around what's going to work for them to make them flourish in the environment.
Fantastic. I think that's such a good idea as well. I know when we first spoke, it's something I'd not heard of before. So I'd be really, really interested to see how the pilot goes with that. You'll have to keep me updated on that.
Yeah, absolutely. We will, yeah.
And what do you think that the key sort of challenges and successes will be off the back of that wellbeing passport?
In terms of challenges, I think really it's in the positioning of it with colleagues to make sure that people really understand why we're doing this. And, we're not going to mandate it. This isn't about saying you have to share all this information. It's really about a tool to be able to help people, as I said before, flourish really. So it's there to support people. And I think the communication of that is going to be really, really key to make sure people understand why. And I think occasionally, and it is few and far between, but people feel a little bit, oh, why are they asking me that? What do they want that information for?
Yeah,
so
it's change as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the positioning, I think, and the communication of it will be key. In terms of success, I'm really hoping that people will start to see the benefit of this, and actually, it's an opportunity for people to see that we are trying to personalise experiences for people, and making sure that actually we're considering them as part of decision making or as part of their daily working lives.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And then another thing that we spoke about was kind of moving forwards, that Yorkshire Housing were going to be becoming more customer obsessed and really focusing on that journey. Could you kind of talk us through that, where you're up to and how that's going?
Yeah, so customer obsessed for us is something we've been talking about internally for quite some time. This is a real mindset shift and a culture change that we're trying to create at Yorkshire Housing, to really make sure that customers are at the forefront of our minds when we're making decisions. Customer obsessed for us is about how we make customers feel on a day-to-day basis, making sure that we're there for when they need them, and we sort of the phrase that I keep hearing at Yorkshire Housing at the moment is, and we get out the way when they don't need us, really. But it's the same for colleagues as well. So I think there's a massive link here with ED&I. So we can only make sure that we make customers feel special and at the forefront if we really understand them and really know their diverse needs. But from a colleague point of view as well. So, not just external customers, but internal customers. So a lot of the things that I've been talking about to my team at the moment is around how can we be colleague obsessed? So how can we be customer obsessed with our internal customers as well?
Yeah.
And that's anything from making sure that processes are really streamlined, that we're not saying computer says no or policy is a hindrance. It's about really making sure that, colleagues and customers are at the forefront of those journeys and it's smooth and efficient.
Yeah. And I guess same question as kind of before, what sort of is the biggest challenge that you can see with that, or, how would you handle that?
You mean in terms of customer obsessed?
Yeah, and rolling that out.
Culture change is never easy, is it? And you can always continue to improve and to evolve things. So I think it's less of a challenge and more just the pure size of where we want to go with it and how we want to embed it, really.
Yeah.
We've got around about 850 colleagues. Getting everybody singing off the same hymn sheet isn't necessarily always easy to do. But we've got a lot of great colleagues that are absolutely doing the right thing for customers anyway. But I think this is just making sure that we're all pulling in the same direction.
Of course.
And making sure that we've got the right tools and the right enablers for people to be able to be customer obsessed.
Yeah.
That's a big focus of ours at the moment. Making sure our systems are really helping us rather than hindering us, and our processes as well.
Yeah, no, fantastic. And kind of looking ahead then over the next 12 months or so, in terms of the EDI focus, because I know that that's kind of what we've gone into detail about, what would you say is the biggest priority at the moment for Yorkshire Housing?
As I mentioned before, we've done loads in this space already. We're actually just in the process at the moment of sort of reviewing where we've got to, reviewing how well we've embedded or completed some of the things that we said we'd do. Looking at the changing environment. So, things change all the time, don't they? And something that you had to do 2 years ago doesn't always necessarily still be relevant. So at the moment, what we're doing is looking at refreshing our strategy. So it's, by all means not a rewrite. This is we're still focusing on the same things. It's just about making sure that we're still on track, or we're still focusing on the right actions.
Yeah.
We've actually just introduced a new ED&I lead into my team. So
Fantastic.
we'll be working full time on that. And the second part of their role will be much around that customer angle of ED&I as well, because we need to bring the customer and the colleague plans and journeys together to make sure that we're focusing on the holistic ED&I topic as opposed to just from a colleague point of view.
Yeah.
We've got things like TSMs, so the tenant satisfaction measures that we've been working on. We want to go massively above those, but actually that's a real good starting point for us to understand our customers better.
Measurable, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a baseline for us. So we're looking at the moment around, how well do we understand our customer base? How well do we understand what our customers' needs are? And then we'll go on from there. I think in the ED&I space, diversity is only likely to increase over the next few years. And so we want to make sure things like all our interactions with customers, so our website, our emails, our conversations with customers are really accessible, whether that's from a disability point of view or whether from it's a language barrier point of view. So that's some of the big things that we'll be working on. And, we need to be able to do all that to be customer obsessed. So there's a real sort of tie-in and link between the two.
Yeah, 100% there is. And I guess more of a personal question, how do you think that other housing associations could do more on the ED&I front?
I think really what it's about is about learning from each other. We do a lot of that in the sector. So I'm not saying that we've got it all right. I'm not saying that we've got all the answers. There'll be in fact, I know there's housing associations out there doing things that we've noticed and think, well, that's a really good idea. So how might that work for us? So I think as a sector, we need to work much closer together to work out, right, what are the issues from the sector and how do we as a collective address those? And we have already started to do that with different groups, which is really exciting and really nice to be able to do.
It is, I think I've been in a couple of conversations now with like exactly like you say, a group of 5 or 6 housing associations, and just hearing each other and what everybody's sort of doing and taking bits from each other, I think is definitely the way forward. I would agree with that.
That's something I've really noticed coming into the sector, how much sharing there is going on and how open people are to sharing.
Supportive.
Yeah, supportive, definitely, without that sort of overly competitive nature. And I think that's a really refreshing thing to come into the sector and to experience.
Yeah, I definitely second that. And in terms of your career then with Yorkshire Housing, obviously, like you've said, you're moving into this new director role. What do you still want to achieve in your career with Yorkshire Housing?
Oh, that sounds like an interview question, doesn't it?
I'm good at my job.
We've still got absolutely loads to do. We've really sort of spent the last few years as a team really focusing on those foundations from a colleague point of view. So getting the basics in place, and we've started to see some real positives off the back of that. But for me, there's loads more for us to do around personalisation for colleagues. Really sort of be in that place where people say, actually, do you know what, I really want to go and work there because they're a really good employer. We spend an awful lot of our lives at work, don't we? And so making sure that work fits in around our lives and complements our lives, I think is really important. So that's going to be a major focus. Some of the other things we're doing at the moment, I know we've spoken about this, Amy, previously, but is around some of our ways of working.
Yeah.
Really sort of breaking down that 9 to 5 way of working, that I'm sure if you speak to Nick Atkin will tell you that Henry Ford invented in 1920. I can't remember that day, but and actually, is that really still fit for purpose in today's society? No, our customers, a lot of our customers are working during those hours, and therefore we're available, when they need us. So really sort of we're doing a lot of pilots at the moment around how we can try and break down that traditional way of working to work for our customers and for colleagues.
Fantastic. And I guess last question from me then, Sarah. What advice would you give somebody that's looking to get into a HR or people role within the sector?
Ooh, another good one. You threw that one at me. I wasn't expecting that one. I think for me that, working in any sector within a people team, it's about really knowing your customers and really knowing your sector. So you don't need to know the intricacies around how housing works, but really understanding the challenges that a lot of our customer facing teams experience, so that actually when you're talking to them, when you're giving them advice, when you're coming up with strategies or action plans, that you get the buy-in from people because they're realistic and they're targeting the right things as opposed to just being way off whilst they're sort of firefighting, if you will, in certain areas. So I think understanding some of the realistic challenges that the sector's facing, but also being able to bring those innovative ideas and really think differently to be able to support colleagues to improve the service that they offer and improve their experience at work.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And if anybody does want to kind of get in touch with you about anything you've mentioned today, is the best way through LinkedIn?
Yeah, absolutely. Drop me a message on LinkedIn. I'd be happy to have a chat.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. It was great to catch up.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode of The Hip. If you'd like to hear more from us, please be sure to follow us on your favourite podcast platform. We are also running a 30-minute clinic free of charge to any clients that want to recruit in a more inclusive way. For more information, please reach out to us on our website, andersonjames.com.